Yay. Okay, so here we are. Parashat Vayishlach starts off in the parasha. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefanav el Esav achiv artza seir sde Edom. Yaakov sent messengers, and we'll see what that word malach means, in front of him to Esav his brother towards the land of Seir in the field of Edom. Okay, so question, where is Sde Edom, Artza Seir? Yeah, anyway, it's somewhere, and obviously it's not just a geography lesson, but something very meaningful. But the Zohar HaKadosh, the Holy Zohar, is concerned this week, at least in the beginning. It's quite long, actually, the Vayishlach in the Zohar. But it's concerned initially with the concept of malachim. So malach means a messenger. It also means an angel. The two have become synonymous in Hebrew. The word malach means angel. It also means messenger. That in of itself isn't like an interesting limud in terms of messages and sharing things with other people. Sometimes happens in people's lives that you hear someone say something to you, and it's something very meaningful, and it helps you in your life. So they were a messenger. They gave you a message. Anyway, maybe that's how the two got connected. So it says, Rabbi Yehuda Patach, Ki malachav yitzav elach l'shmarcha b'chol drachecha. From Tehillim, his angels are, so to speak, commanded to you, or have been put there for you, l'shmarcha b'chol drachecha, to protect you in all your ways. Hakra ukma chavre. So this pasuk was explained by the chevra, so to speak. Daha b'shad devar nash asi la'alma, ati la'alma. Miyad is damin b'hade yetzer hara. Diyu mikatreg le'levar nash tadir. Oda atamar lepeta chata robitz. Ma chata robitz da yetzer hara. So I've been moved. Having a moving experience. The Zohar says something really interesting here. Basically, from the time a person's born, the time a person comes into the world, the Zohar says they have with them the Yetzer Hara. Okay, so. It's always there. So to speak, it's being mekatreg. It's always going against you, so to speak. Or it's always there bothering you. Like the famous story of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, when he had a very interesting relationship with his father-in-law, and you can imagine the holy Berdichever actually had a good relationship, very good relationship. But to begin with, it was a little different. You know, the Hasidim were a little different at the time. You know, they were really different, and so they brought Levi Yitzchak, who's known to be a great davener. He could really lead quite well, apparently, especially as a young man. They brought him in the shul to daven, and the father-in-law wanted to kind of show off his new son-in-law, who was really a great chacham, but also a tremendous shliach tzibur. So, famous story. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchak gets up there, and in the middle of Tzukei Zimra, he's leading. He shouts out, and he shouts out, "No, it's not true." And everyone kind of looks, what? You know, what? And then he goes back into davening. finally they're getting up to going up and finally, and he seems to be having a conversation as he's davening, and yet every once in a while he'll yell out, "Oh, that can't be." Finally, they get to the repetition of the Amidah, and he takes up his talis, he rolls it up in a ball, and he says, "If that's the case, then you daven Shacharis. You go ahead and lead the shliach. You be the shliach tzibur." He throws down his talis and he walks off and very angry. So it's like, I don't know if the story, and maybe I don't know it so well, but I think maybe they found someone else to do the repetition. I'm not sure, but somehow. So they asked him afterwards, what happened, and he said basically the Yetzer Hara came to him and said, while he was davening, he said, I've been with you the whole time. When you were when you were with the Maggid of Mezrich learning, it was really me. I was right there, right? And he says when you were, learning incredibly, it was really me. And so I kept arguing with him. I said, it can't be. It was me. It wasn't you. Arguing. Finally, he said, and right now, when you're gonna be a shliach tzibur, you're gonna do the repetition. He said, that's me also. I'm right here with you. It's really me. And so I said to him, if that's the case, well then you daven. Then if it's really you, so you go ahead and you daven. Right? So the point is, it's very much. I never realized it, but it's really the point of the story is really to do with the Zohar, which is he was trying to illustrate probably this very parsha from the Zohar, which is the following. The natural way of a person, of being in the world, that's the Yetzer Hara. Your natural tendencies are the Yetzer Hara, right? The Yetzer Tov, that it's going to go on to talk about, is only something that's proactive. The Yetzer Tov is something that's a conscious choice, right? It's not a naturally occurring thing. It's something you have to. It's something proactive that you do. And so what he was saying, what he was teaching, the Rabbi Lev Yitzchak of Berdichev's, what he was teaching us is, it may be, the Yetzer Hara, he was having an argument, meaning the Yetzer Hara was saying, you're not, you were raised in a religious household, it's me. It's your natural tendency to be like that. And what he was saying is, no, it's not. That when I get up to daven, I'm doing something proactive. It's not just something that that's kind of my natural way of being. I'm making a conscious choice to do something positive in the world when I daven, especially when I lead services. And it's beyond, so to speak, my nature as my natural way of being. It's something I'm doing, something proactive I'm doing in the world. So that's what the argument he was having with the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara was trying to convince him, no, it's just your natural way of being. And what he was basically saying is, no, because without my proaction, without my consciousness, my conscious choice to engage in this, it would never go anywhere. It would never be as great otherwise. It wouldn't be, right? A natural type of davening, because I do it because I did it yesterday, and then I did it before that, and everyone did it. Everyone's always done it, and whatever. That's not special davening. Special davening is I'm choosing to do it. I'm making something more out of it than is natural. I'm engaging my consciousness, right? So this is very important. Again, the conception of the Yetzer Hara as your natural way of being, and you have it from the day you're born, and it's always there with you. Meaning, it's how you naturally are, right? So that conception of how you naturally are it goes on. The Zohar goes on to say, "V'David hachinami karei chatas chata." David HaMelech Alav Shalom calls this natural way of being. He calls it chata. He calls it a sin, right? Meaning that's what it is. It's natural for you, in order to be your natural self, to go entirely only on your kind of your path that you've been set on is totally reactionary. There's no proaction. It's just all reaction, and to how you were raised, or where you grew up, or what type of person your personal tendencies are, in spite or despite of where you were or how you grew up or anything like that. That's called a sin. Meaning that's a sin. To just continue on that way is really very negative. Not to have any proaction, right? I mean, just to be reactionary is really considered, according to Zohar, saying that, and I think rightfully so, very interestingly. So, according to David HaMelech, that's called a sin, and the quotes the pasuk from Tehillim, "V'chatati negdi tamid," meaning v'chatati, meaning this inaction or reaction is always there. This ability to not act, so to speak, the ability to be passive as to not make a conscious choice of doing anything in the world and just go kind of with your natural tendencies. That's always with me. Chatati negdi tamid. I have to always be aware of it, is basically what David Melech is saying. I always have to be aware that it's possible for me to just fall right back into my pattern, my most comfortable pattern, which is the following, right? And so that's called a chet. Okay, so missing the mark or doing a sin, according to Zohar, is simply falling back into your kind of natural pattern, right? As opposed to doing something proactive and making a conscious choice to engage the world in a positive way. Okay. Avid le levarnash kol yomar. Lemachte kame mara. Let's see. Right, so that's basically the Yetzer Hara's job, is to try to get you to revert to your most, passive or reactive self. It's only in reaction. So something happens, you react. Something happens, you react. As opposed to, I'm making the following conscious choice to do this, right? And so that's really a sin. And again, you see in a sense why God has such rahmanas on us, because very, very seldom does the person proactively do something wrong. Now I'm gonna do something. I'm really gonna go do something wrong. It's almost very, very few people are like that. Thank God. Most people, it's just if you think of like the great dictators in the world, that's their thing. They're proactive.
Murderers.
Yeah, may God protect us. The people who do wrong, really, really bad, they're very proactive people. It's just that they're proactive in a very bad way. So, may God protect us. But most people, when they do something wrong, it's just because they're just kind of reverting to this very reactive, very kind of passive way of being in the world. The kind of basis that underlies everything. And so you can see again, in a certain sense, why God has such rahmanas. It's not that they're bad, not that people are bad. It's just that they haven't learned this lesson about the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. Right. It's it adi mibarnash miyom the yali barnash la'almin. It's there again. The Yetzer Hara is there, as we mentioned before, from the time a person is born. Meaning, again, I'm interpreting that to mean to mean that it's your natural way of being in the world. There's nothing proactive about it. And again, look, the Zohar. It's also a limud on learning the Zohar. There are different svarim we have, and so some people feel that to learn the Zohar, that you should learn the Zohar the same way you would learn the Gemara, the same way you'd learn the Midrash, the same way you learn Chassidut. I don't think it works that way. I'm fairly certain that it's all very similar to playing different musical instruments. Right? You'd never play a guitar the same way you'd play a trombone. I mean, you might, but it would sound really silly. And you would never play the violin the same way you play a guitar, or the same way you would never approach it the same way you play the piano. It would be ridiculous. I mean, every every instrument has its own, obviously unique set of skills, and then also kind of mindset that goes with it, that you have to learn how to play it properly. I look at Sfarim in the same way. Every sefer has its own, way of learning it or approaching it. You could also look at it as like ensembles. You'd never, as a conductor maybe, you'd never approach a brass ensemble in a technically similar way that you would approach an entire orchestra. Or you never approach an entire orchestra in the same way you'd approach an orchestra with a giant choir. It's different. I mean, your general approach might be similar. You might have general concepts that apply across the board, and that would be the case with musical instruments also. But you really have to take into account the ensemble you're in front of, or the musical instrument you're playing, or you won't do a good job. I mean, it'll be a disaster. And so the same thing is true with Sfarim. So maybe the Zohar is like this gigantic symphony orchestra with a huge choir behind it. I mean, you can't approach it the same way you would approach, like, leading a string quartet or something. I mean, it's completely different. Or rehearsing, if you're going to rehearse it, you rehearse it totally different. So, again, when you learn the Zohar, it's very important to look at it and not go, well, it technically says that a person has the Yetzer Hara and they're from the day they're born. You cannot take it literally. It's especially, I mean, the entire Torah you can't take literally, but especially, it's not a history book. It's not a book of law, despite what some people think. Although there are laws that are part of it. We're not holy lawyers or something, as Jews. That's again, we have law as part of our system. Well, I'm not saying there aren't holy lawyers. I'm sure I know it exists, but just like there can be holy musicians, which also seems like sometimes to be a little bit of a contradiction in terms. The Torah is it's something complete, right? Torah Hashem Temimah. It's not just laws or just something spiritual or just a way of musar, a way of teaching, moral teaching. It's not any of those things, and you can mistake it for one of those things. It's all of them, and much, much, much more than just the sum of its parts, so to speak. Anyway, so when you're looking at the Zohar, you really, again, it's not meant to be taken literally, although it is meant to be taken very seriously. And so the question is, when you're learning the Zohar, what does it mean? What are they saying? How does it kind of translate into the world we find ourselves now? I mean, again, if you want to look at it as a history lesson and why they said it and how they said it and whatever, that's very interesting. But to me, it seems beside the point. The main thing to take away from the Zohar, especially, is what does it mean? And so that's why I'm interpreting it. I'm interpreting it because it needs interpretation. It needs to try to understand what it actually means. And I've seen people learn the Zohar as if it's the Gemara, and it's very painful. It doesn't. It's just kind of seems ununderstandable, Okay. Anyway, so this concept again. So from the time you're born, the person has the Yetzer Hara. I mean, the person has this natural tendency. You're born into the world, and you have a natural way of being, right? Now, the Zohar says something very interesting now. The Yetzer Hatov ati lebarnash miyoma da ati leitdeka. So the Yetzer Hatov comes to a person from the day that they want to or try to purify themselves, right? And so I think what that means is from the time you want to do something positive in the world, right? You want to make the world a better place, or you want to make yourself a better place. Something, right? Something positive in the world. From the time you want to do something positive in the world, that's when you have the Yetzer Tov, the Yetzer HaTov. So meaning, again, pro-action is the Yetzer HaTov, the ability to do something more than just react to the world, but to make a conscious decision to do something positive in the world.